Welcome. Today we're going to make a Meyer lemon Valentine's Day cake. And you might be wondering, why would I choose a lemon cake for Valentine's Day? And the reason is because when I was thinking about Valentine's Day, a lot of holidays have celebratory foods that go along with them. And at Valentine's Day, we usually think of chocolate as a celebratory food, right? And one of the things that I am continually exploring in my life is how are my food cravings and my food choices, really just driven by what the culture is doing around me and what I've been taught to believe is the appropriate food for the occasion. So for me, chocolate can be a problematic food at times, and it could be easy to go into feeling deprived because I can't have chocolate at Valentine's Day. But if we're going to think about what would be some very appropriate alternatives, well, February is Meyer lemon season. So in addition to celebrating Valentine's Day, let's celebrate the seasonal fruit. So I have these Meyer lemons that I got from my vegetable box that I get every week, and I get different seasonal fruits and vegetables. And I got some Meyer lemons, and we're going to make this delicious lemon cake for Valentine's Day. I even have a heart-shaped pan that I'm going to bake it in. Okay, so to start out, here I have in my mixing bowl, I have a half a cup of almond flour. I have a cup of oat flour. I have 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, and I have a 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of Truvia sweetener. And then there's 2 teaspoons of baking powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so I made the oat flour myself. I just ground it up in my Vitamix blender. In order to help the cake be light and fluffy, I did sift all of the dry ingredients in a wire mesh sieve. It just, helps separate out the lumps and helps them become more fluffy. So to my dry ingredients, I'm going to add, in here, I have a 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of full fat coconut milk. I blended this up in the blender. Here, I'll show you. So it would make it nice and smooth because, in the can, when you take it right out of the can, the fat's on top and then all the liquid's on the bottom. So when you blend it together, it helps everything be nice and smooth. I also added to this 2 tablespoons of cashew yogurt, and the recipe didn't call for the yogurt, but yogurt gives it a little bit of tang, and then also which will go nice with the lemon. And then also I thought that it does help with making the cake nice and moist. So let's hope I didn't add too much liquid, but by adding in the yogurt. But that's okay. This is an experiment. A lot of times when I cook, I do pull recipes off the internet and I do follow the recipes pretty closely, but I also just experiment with the recipe until I get something that I really like. Here I have 2.5 tablespoons of lemon juice to make it nice and lemony. And then here I have the zest. I used 3 of these small Meyer lemons. The recipe called for the zest of 1 lemon, but since I have the smaller Meyer lemons, I used 3 of them and zested them. So I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And I am going to sift all of that together. So I will show you, I have the recipe sitting in the kitchen on the counter. So I will show you where I got the recipe from after, when we come back after our cake is baked. We're going to glaze it also. But for now, I'm just going to mix this all up with my whisk until everything is well mixed together. So while I'm doing this, just a word about the sweeteners. Like I said, I use Truvia brand sweetener. The recipe actually does just call for regular white sugar. Again, white refined sugar is kind of problematic for me, so I tend not to use it in my recipes, but you certainly can. We have nothing against it if it's not problematic for you. So it calls for 3/4 cup of sugar. I always use alternative sweeteners and I always use less than they call for. And I usually start out by using about half of what it calls for. So that's why I used 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons. And we will see how it turns out. In my experience, almond flour also has some good sweet flavor. So I just didn't see the need for all of that sugar for my palate, because since I stopped using white refined sugar, I do tend to make my baked goods less sweet. So I like the tart lemon taste to come out. So we'll see how it turns out. Again, an experiment. Okay. So I've got all of this whisked together, makes a nice smooth batter. And I am going to go put this in my cake pan. I have my heart-shaped pan in the oven getting nice and hot. So I'm going to go put it in the oven and bake it for 23 minutes. And then once it's baked and cooled, we'll come back and make a glaze. All right, my cake is done. So I ended up baking it for 35 minutes at 350. And it's been cooling for 45 minutes. Now we're going to make a glaze to put on top of it and decorate it a little bit. So in this bowl here, again, I have 1/4 cup of Truvia sweetener, 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I did take the sweetener and just put it in the blender and blitzed it a little bit, so it has a more fine texture, almost like powdered sugar. And here I have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And actually, I'm going to add my vanilla first. So I'm going to put 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And then the lemon juice, I'm going to add 1/2 of it first and see how that goes. I do want it to be nice and lemony, but I also want to get the right kind of glaze texture. So okay, looks like I can add. So I'm just going to add the rest of the lemon juice. So this is a very tender cake. It's not the kind of cake where you're going to be able to slice it and make it to a layer cake or anything like that. It is very soft in the middle, and it will break easily. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some raspberries on it. Let's put it that way so you can see better. And for decoration. So I don't know, I'm just imagining I'm going to put them around the outside edge here. That gives us a pretty little red border for our Valentine's Day. I also thought edible flowers would be really pretty on this. You have a Meyer lemon Valentine's Day cake.